Travel and Tourism by Emma McClymont. My topic is on where, when, and how do Canadians travel. Inquiry questions. What are the exchange rates for currency from Canadian to American, and how many males and females above and below the age of 15 travel in Canada? What is this topic about? The places and times that Canadians travel, and how they get there. Why is this topic important to society? It can help people choose where, when, and how they travel. And it can also give information on the economy of countries. What careers would find this useful? Travel agencies, travel and transportation companies, tourist locations such as museums and other sightseeing locations, and local businesses that travelers visit. My first question is, what are the exchange rates for currency from Canadian to American? My variables. The X variable for this set of data represents the years from 2004 to 2012 quarterly. This means that each year has been separated into 4 parts. The Y variable for this set of data represents the exchange rate from Canadian dollars to US dollars. The distribution of this data is strong, due to the standard deviation being close to 0. The data that I gathered from StatCan accurately answers my question of what the exchange rates were from Canadian to American. It gave me more specific data than I thought it would, giving me quarterly results instead of just annual results like I expected. The website gave me even more data than I needed, which was helpful if I needed that much data, which I didn't. When I put the data into a scatter plot graph, I was able to see the trend of exchange rate. I noticed that in 2004, the data peaked before it gradually dropped to its lowest point in the final quarter of 2007. Afterwards, it peaked again, rather quickly I might add, in the first quarter of 2009, gradually dropping again to the same lows it had in 2007 and late 2012. After which, the data was terminated. With the data displayed like this in a scatter plot, I was able to see the rate at which the exchange rates increased and decreased. This data would have been useful to people who decided what the currency exchange to the dollar is, as well as how much they should charge for the service. By using the mean and standard deviation, a person could interpret what the position of the next dot might be, as well as interpret what the next set of dots may look like, and so on and so forth. Doing this would be useful for travelers as well, such as Canadians enjoying traveling to places in America to shop due to their prices being better. So by studying the trends in the graph, a person would be able to determine what the best time to go shop in America would be based on the exchange rate of our dollars. The validity of my data is extremely high. One of the things that attributes to the validity of the data would be the source of my data. I got it from a website called StatCan, which is a site with statistical data gathered by the government. Not only is this set of data gathered by the government, but it is also not gathered from surveying a population of people, due to it being a single entity. And due to this, there cannot be 2 separate values of data at one time, although the data was terminated after 2012, so there is no more new data that is being gathered to date. As time goes on, this could affect the relativity of the data would have in the current time. So, for example, perhaps in the year 2045, the exchange rate of Canadian dollars to US dollars in 1989 would have been irrelevant, and serve no use to researchers or people who need that type of data. There is also the fact that some of the data could be missing due to the frequency the data changes. Another issue with the data was the fact that it was never stated as to whether the exchange rate was based on Canadian to US or to US to Canadian, or both. I had to make an assumption that it was Canadian to US that was being exchanged. I also only used data from 2004 to 2012. The data went all the way back to 1986. My second inquiry question is, how many males and females above and below the age of 15 travel in Canada? The X variable for this set of data represents the years 1980 to 1996. In the context of the data, it represents the years a certain amount of males and females traveled in Canada from the years 1980 to 1996. The Y variable in this set of data represents the males and females that are 15 and over. When applied to the data, it represents the males and females 15 and over that traveled in Canada during the years 1980 to 1986. The Z variable for this set of data represents the number of males and females below 15 years of age that traveled in Canada from 1980 to 1996. The correlation for males and females under 15 is negative and more weak than strong, with scattered dots, making it difficult to spot outliers. The correlation for the data for males and females 15 and over is positive and mildly strong, with a few outliers. There isn't any causal relationship between the X and Y and X and Z variables, other than how as years go by, the males and females below 15 would have gotten older, and ergo, there's a higher chance of more people 15 or over traveling. The data I gathered answered my question accurately and thoroughly. It gave me a list of males and females both above and below the ages of 15, dating from 1980 to 1996. Although this data was not separated quarterly like the first set of data was, I believe that it is still extremely useful. When comparing the two sets of data, it is clear that as the amount of females and males under 15 decrease, the amount of males and females 15 and older increase. I think this can be caused by the fact that since people are getting older as years go by, they are more likely to travel again. This pattern in the data could also have been caused by a baby boom, since there would be a larger amount of individuals under the age of 15 during the times close to the baby boom. One issue that I had with the data, however, was that I was unable to separate the two genders, as I would have enjoyed being able to see the comparison between the two of them. Not only has the data been terminated as of 1996, but there is also no indication of whether or not every male and female above and below 15 who are traveling had been recorded. There is also a huge difference between the amount of age possibilities below 15 and above 15. The validity of my data is extremely strong. This would be due to the source of my data and how it would have been collected. Since airports and border crossings have to keep records of who enters and travels in a country, the data that was collected is most likely very reliable. Some limitations that I had of the data was that I was unable to separate the genders, this of which, if I had been able to, would have come in handy to narrow down my research and give me an easier choice for my X, Y, and Z variables. Also, the data for this table is only gathered every 2 years, and started in 1980, but was terminated in 1996, which not only means this data is slightly outdated, but it also gives a limited amount of data. I also found that I had the same difficulties with this set of data that I had with the set of data for question 1. The data wasn't specific as to what exactly it was about, as well as where it came from. I had to make another assumption as to what the data meant by people traveling in Canada, and in terms of whether it meant it was Canadian residents returning to Canada internationally, if it meant Canadians traveling within the borders of Canada, or if it meant foreign people traveling to or in Canada. I settled with a safe assumption that it meant Canadian residents traveling within the borders of Canada. So now, my presentation is coming to a close, and here are my citations. All of my statistical data was gathered from StatCan, and all information gathered on travel and tourism was learned in my travel and tourism class this semester. All pictures were gathered from Google Images, and all graphs were made using Fathom. Thank you.